in very handy if your bay builds a lot of five-sided enclosures. We will begin by simply transferring our contoured wall pattern onto a strip of wood that in this particular truck will serve for both the bottom and the top of the box. We will save this pattern for future use to eliminate the first step of building this enclosure the next time it comes in. Our installers have been known to build these enclosures in as little as 10 minutes with accurate patterns. The procedure begins with a basic compass and a piece of MDF long enough to cover the span of your enclosure. I will usually put a piece of heat shrink tubing over the tip of my compass to keep it from scratching the painted surface of the vehicle. Next, have a coworker or a friend help by holding your piece of MDF in place evenly spaced to where your enclosure will be placed. This is the only time you will really need a second set of hands during this procedure, and in the future, once the pattern is created, this box is a snap to build by yourself. Now here's the important part. Take your compass and press it against the rear wall, keeping the pencil perpendicular to the wall. Slowly and accurately run the compass across the contour, keeping it perpendicular as you go. It is very important to take your time when tracing this contour, because once it is finished, you'll have the pattern that may be duplicated time and time again. I have used this technique over and over to produce several different patterns for such things as door panels, amp racks, beauty boards, and trim panels. It works ideally for both accuracy and saving time. Now we're going to take our pattern and cut carefully along the line using our Bosch jigsaw. If you recall, I stated earlier, this in my opinion is the best jigsaw available. Okay, now clamp your work down using two clamps, one close to the center because you'll be moving it outward once you've cut to that point, and the other one close to the far end. Now, taking your time, proceed to cut slowly along that line that you've transferred from the rear wall of the truck. Once you've reached the first clamp, move it to the outside of your work and continue to cut your wood. Now that we've finished our cut, we have a pattern in which we will write the make and model of the truck and save this in our install bay. Make sure your cut is accurate before beginning the duplication process. The next step is to transfer your shape from your pattern to the top and bottom of your enclosure efficiently. To do that, simply take the piece that is going to be the top of your enclosure and clamp it to the top of your pattern. The clamp's position here is much like that of the jigsaw section and will be needed to be moved when you get to that point. Be sure when you move your clamps that the two pieces remain aligned before you reclamp. Next, take your plunge router with your flush trim bit, set the depth for the bearing to ride along your pattern piece, and proceed to cut. Now see how easily we can duplicate our work using a router. This step can be used in doing the bottom piece, and tracing shapes with the router can also be used for many other woodworking tasks such as door panels, etc. Alright, now that we have the top and bottom out of the way, let's cut the sides with the technique we learned earlier using our taper jig. Before we go any further, let's check the fits of our top, bottom, and sides in the truck. Here we have the top, now the bottom, and here's how the side looks in the truck. Now, after assembling the sides, top, and bottom using wood glue and brad nails, we will then attach little L-shaped clamps around our enclosure to secure it in the vehicle. Be sure they are all mounted inside the enclosure to keep them well hidden during mounting. See how nicely our enclosure fits into the vehicle? The last thing we must do before screwing in our enclosure is to seal any and all air pockets using silicone. Since our enclosure has such nice tight fit, we won't be wasting too much silicone. Okay, now that we have beaded our silicone all the way around the edge, we are ready to screw our enclosure into place. Before screwing your enclosure into place, take your carpenter square and make sure your corners of your enclosures are square. Now screw your enclosure in using short sheet metal screws through your brackets. When the box is in place, I like to cover my brackets with silicone. Here is a shot of our frame fully screwed into place. Next we need our front piece, which will have the woofer holes already cut into it using the procedure we learned earlier in the video. Be sure to miter the top and bottom of the front piece to ensure the proper fit. Now we're going to put a bead of silicone around the edge of the back of your enclosure to ensure a good tight seal. Tamping material and other materials may be used in this enclosure to reduce panel vibration. Next, secure your front panel using the brad nailer. Make sure you always keep your air nailer perpendicular to the piece being nailed. This will keep nails from curling out the side.